You know, my buddy got us canceled from a stand-up show because he made a fat joke and he wasn't supposed to make. He was supposed to do clean jokes, and that cost me $1,000. We got canceled. You know, so like it does happen, and it's fine. But the people that I know that have been like hard canceled, they go, you know, it's actually freeing. I don't have to live up to anyone else's expectations now. And this is coming from me, who's I'm wildly unproblematic. But there was a good example last week. Caitlin Bristow from The Bachelorette and Dancing with the Stars winner. She's got her own podcast, Off the Vine. She made a joke about she's dating a guy named Zack Clark. They haven't confirmed it, but they've been dating, right? And Zack Clark was engaged to Tayshia Adams. Well, apparently, when Caitlin started dating Zack, she texted Tayshia Adams and said, "Hey, I'm going to be dating Zack. I want you to know before the gossip mags." Tayshia calls Caitlin and says, "You're the worst person, blah, 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 you know, whatever. All my fears are, you know, confirmed. I don't like you." And then on the podcast, You Up, Caitlin Bristow says, "I should have sent her a photo of me sucking his dick." Now, she didn't send a photo of her sucking his dick. She said, "I should have." She said it as a joke, right? She got so much hate for this. I mean, brutal levels of hate for days. And then what happens? The Tuesday episode of The Bachelor happens and everyone forgets about it. Everyone forgets about it. So audiences need to know collectively they're responsible for the outrage and for feeding on it like hungry zombies and then just moving on to the next thing. So unless someone did something so bad you want to continue to pursue that and torment them, like you're part of the problem because you're just feeding off of it on your end. You're getting all upset because of something. You're getting this mass outrage, which makes you feel good because you're on the right side of this story. And then you move on to the next dead carcass that you and the other zombies can go feed off of. So you just see it from the higher point of view and you go, oh, this is all just none of this matters.
No, the news cycle is so quick. And like, you talk about cancellation. Look, Stassi Schroeder in 2020, in the height of BLM, was canceled from Bravo, fired. Her podcast was canceled, taken off of Apple, which, I mean, does that ever happen? That's like a 1%. I mean, her entire tour, live stand-up tour, canceled. She was literally canceled. Then she went on Tamron Hall months later to clear her name, made matters worse, much worse. Now she has book deals. The podcast is back on. She's now she has her own show on Hulu called Straight Up Stassi, and she's coming to Vanderpump Villa for a season. So she was canceled. That's about as canceled as you can get. I mean, it was literally like the podcast was taken off Apple. Like, does that ever happen? Right.
I can't believe that.
Right. I mean, that's almost fired by Bravo, stand-up show, podcast show canceled, book deals pulled. It's all back, baby. So, and it's been, it's creeped back. Like she's had the book deals for a year and the podcast was back 2 years
ago. But not
ago.
everyone like can make that recovery. And my advice to people, because Chris Harrison did the wrong thing. He said some things like defending the company, and then he was waiting for the company to get his back, and they never did. And I always say corporations, companies, they are psychopaths. They do not feel emotion. They're there to protect themselves.
I say that all the time.
What he should have done is immediately apologize, immediately do a 3-hour podcast, immediately get ahead of the story. Because look, I'm a progressive guy through and through. I always want to see a redemption arc. If someone did something wrong or says something wrong, give them a chance to own up to it and try to be better. I don't want people to go away for good. Now, there's always this scenario where you go, no one needs to hear you. And there's the supply and demand economics. If people don't want to listen to you, fine. But I think what happened, and I think we're getting away from it, is Bravo, they might get 100 angrily worded letters threatening their sponsors, and they get afraid of that because in the old world that's a lot, and now you realize that could be 7 people. 7 people can chat GPT their way into effing someone so bad. And I've seen it because I was sued over my coverage this past year. I was threatened with $140 million lawsuit by a lady who faked a pregnancy with a Bachelor contestant, and it took me really, it's a whole story I've covered all year long, but it took me finding and proving medical fraud to stand by my story that I was on the right side of the story. But I mean, she called the FBI on me. She did all these things to mess with me. She created a fake black journalist. She created fake medical doctors to claim she had ovarian cancer. She did all these things. And because I had an army of thousands of people scouring, literally, we had medical professionals scouring through everything she said. We raised money to get a computer forensic expert to analyze things that she was doing. We were able to prove it was all wrong. And now she's getting actually investigated for prosecution by the Maricopa County prosecutors. But the whole story was basically I was the only one talking about this fraud that was being committed. Meanwhile, privately, yeah, she was calling the FBI on me. She was doing all these crazy things. Now, 8-10 months later, it's all coming out because of the Freedom of Information Act. So yesterday on my YouTube channel, we watched the body cam footage of the police showing up to her house. Why? Because she threatened to kill herself over my honest coverage because I was exposing a liar. That's a separate crazy story, but it's an example where when you're authentic and you mean what you say and you say what you mean, people will rally around you. And I had a huge audience rally around me because they knew I had built up enough like equity that I was on the right side of a story. And sometimes you're not. Sometimes you have a bad take and it's like, what, are you going to cancel me over my bad take? Because I said I don't like bicyclists because they're assholes. And, I had someone, this week write me a mean letter saying, oh, not all bicyclists are assholes. And it's like, who the hell cares? I just said, I had like an off the line quip about bicyclists. So people do want to hold you to every word you say, but I do think your general audience and fan base understands your tone and your intention. And those are the audience that are going to ride with you through thick and thin.
That's scary about this woman. Like, I've never had anything that, there was remember there was that other story about that woman who showed up at, like, she tried to kill a podcaster. I think it was in Washington. It wasn't in our industry. It was some industry, and some fan or someone angry showed up at this woman's house or man's house. It was like only like a year or two ago. I have to find this article. It was really,
no, it's
maybe
crazy.
they actually succeeded. I think they might have succeeded, believe it or not.
So this lady, Laura Owens, she's a podcast host. She tried to get a restraining order against me. It was denied by the LA Superior Court. But we found ultrasounds that she stole from other people, and we were able to expose, like, through image editing, we were able to find a Fiverr logo on one of them. We were able to, we exposed crazy stuff that was all used in the court documents. The guy Clayton, the Bachelor, won. The judge ruled on his side and then recommended her for actual prosecution. So she's really learning, like, paying the price that you can't be fucking with people like that. And by the way, it was the fourth guy, at least third guy she did it to. So all these guys found out they had a similar story. And now there's a documentary team who's pitching it to different streaming services. But I think it'll be a documentary. I'll be in the center of it because I was the only main person initially that covered it. And a lot of people have covered it since then. But it's just an example that when you do what you do, like, she entered my niche, which was Bachelor Nation. Now I do all pop culture, but she entered that niche. And I was the only one who would cover this story. It initially broke on The Sun, Smut magazine, and they did a real bad job of covering it. And she would threaten, she threatened every other podcaster. Like, if you and I were friends last year, you would have gotten an email from her saying, if you cover